8.2 Health Consultation, Ruben Chilcott, Client 2. Similarly to the first health consultation, the first thing I did was obviously welcome them and just outlined what was happening, and then just moved straight into the first section of the questionnaire. So just firstly finding out the simple stuff again, name, date of birth, age, all that kind of stuff. Then straight to the goals. I worked out with Alfie that he had 3 goals, well, kind of 3 goals, and it was to gain weight, gain muscle, and just become less stressed. And he had tried before and he didn't concede, partly because of his mental health, he said, and he does want to make changes as soon as possible. Physical activity, doesn't do too much, but he does play five-a-side, a couple games of five-a-side a week, and he does have a gym membership, but he doesn't attend it. Nutrition, eats not too much. One of the reasons why he's probably underweight. Has 2 meals per day, not 3 big substantial meals, doesn't really snack much, does have a lot of water, and yeah. Lifestyle wise, drinks a lot of alcohol, 3 days per week and at least 5 units each time, but doesn't smoke, so that's a positive. Sleep wise, gets about 4 to 6 hours because he has to wake up early for work, and he doesn't feel refreshed after his sleep, which is probably quite likely because he's only getting 4 to 6 hours, and this does affect his work quality. His job is, he is a builder. He works 5 to 6 times a week for 10 to 12 hours, so quite a lot of work. He does have heavy lifting, which he sometimes struggles with, once again, because he's underweight, and he doesn't sit for a large period of time, of course, and he drives to work each day. Prescription medicine, he does take antidepressants, but not regularly. Has no allergies and feels chest pain in football sometimes. So after this, I just got him to sign an informed consent thing, just to make sure that he was answering the questions and understood them correctly, like honestly, and to make sure he was going to be okay with carrying out the tests on him that we won't move on to in a minute. So he signed there. After this, basically to summarise the whole questionnaire, I once again split it into about 5 different categories, into goals, physical activity, nutrition, lifestyle and physical health, and then evaluated the strengths and weaknesses of each sort of part of the questionnaire. So his goals, I thought there's quite a lot of strengths there. He plans on making the changes as soon as possible, which is good, and he understands what he wants to change and sort of how he's going to do it. But he had tried and failed before, so I just put that as a little area for improvement, because obviously we don't want that happening again. Physical activity, a lot of strengths again. He plays five-a-side football quite regularly, and his job is very physical, so that's good for physical activity. But area improvement, he does have a gym membership which he doesn't use, and he spends a lot of time watching TV when he can. Nutrition, he's not eating a bad percentage of fat, which is always good, especially if he wants to build muscle. And he does have 8 or more cups of water per day, so he is hydrated, which you would expect from a builder. But he does often have unhealthy dinners just because he doesn't really plan them, and he eats kind of what he has, he said. He only has 2 fruits per day, obviously not brilliant healthy-wise. And he has very low calorie intake, which is obviously probably the main reason he's underweight at the moment. Lifestyle-wise, he doesn't smoke, which is definitely a positive. And so he doesn't smoke, which is a positive, and negative, obviously, like I mentioned earlier, drinking a lot of alcohol, it's going to affect him. Like, he's not going to be able to train as well. If we started training him, he's not going to be able to put on muscle as well if he keeps drinking like he is. So it's definitely something we need to improve, just because, plus it's wasting time. He's not able to eat during that time, a lot of the time. So it's not good for what he's trying to achieve. Physical health, no major injuries, which is definitely a strength, since we will be probably doing some gym activities and some more physical activities. But he does feel chest pain in football, so we might need to be a little bit careful. Same as I did with my other client. After this, I just went over some constants of choices. Obviously, some things you can't change, some risks you can't change. Stuff like genes and stuff, they're beyond the control, but there's definitely a lot of things you can change, like blood pressure, exercise, good and bad cholesterol, like how much alcohol you have, and if you're smoking a lot. So it's just important for him to recognise this. After that, we went on to do same health checks we did with the other client, but this was obviously remote because we couldn't meet in person. So instead of me administering the health test on him, like doing it personally, hand to hand type of thing, I couldn't do that. So instead, I described through a meeting online how he should find the health checks. So I did explain it very carefully to him so he knew what to do. So I told him obviously to hold his palm out upwards and then place his other hand at the bottom of his thumb at the wrist until he could find the pulse, which he did perfectly. And then after that, I started a minute timer. He counted for a minute how many heartbeats he had, and the score was 78. So we then looked and compared that to the table for men, which is the one above in the PowerPoint, and you could see, if I see it there, that it was below average for the average male. So that's not brilliant for Alfie, as it shows his heart rate is much higher. Well, not much higher, but a fair bit higher than the average sort of heart rate for a male at his age. So that's definitely something we're going to look forward, because a high heart rate can lead to a lot of risks, and it's something you definitely want to change. And then moving on to our BMI check, obviously same sort of thing. I couldn't measure his height and weight in person, so instead I got him to measure his height, as you can see in the first picture, and then him to measure his him to measure his weight, which was obviously 8 stone 8. He's obviously 19 and the exercise is moderate, so I once again put it into the NHS BMI calculator, and it suggests that it was an 18.1 BMI, which is just underweight, because healthy is 18.5. So this also suggests it's probably something we should be working on, which makes sense as it is one of his goals to put on weight. So ideally we would want to push him up into maybe about 20, around 20, because that shows he'll be in a much healthier weight, maybe a bit more. But obviously we want to just start very slow. We'd want to get him past that 18.5 and into a healthier weight. Final check we did was a waist to hip ratio check. Same sort of thing as before again, but obviously we had to get Alfie to measure it. So he measured his own waist. Like I said, same exact thing. Stand with a good posture, breathe out before taking the measurement, so everything's correct. So we got the two, waist and the hip ratio, then divided them by each other and came up with a score of 0.86, which is, again, if you look in the averages and the norms, considered quite good. So this again was a better sort of check. This is something we don't need to focus on as much, which is expected, because obviously as a skinny sort of underweight person, you would expect them to not have a very high waist to hip ratio. So this makes sense. So just to evaluate then, resting heart rate we worked out is something that definitely needs to be looked at, because compared to the norms it's very high, so could be considered a bit of a risk. Same with BMI. It's not really too much of a risk, but it's considered unhealthy at the moment. It can be considered a strength that is close to healthy, though definitely something we can improve on. And the waist to hip ratio was once again very healthy. Don't really need to look too much into this. Obviously he wants to put on weight, so it will probably increase a little bit, but that's expected. No real improvements here. So the first recommendation I'll suggest to my client is to adapt his diet / overall nutrition, as his main aim was to put on weight and bulk up, which is made extremely difficult due to his diet. His diet is negatively affecting him in many ways, as not only will it not allow him to bulk up if he continues the same, but it also could have been one of the reasons he stopped attending the gym, because it's very difficult to put on muscle if the diet isn't right, so he wouldn't have been seeing the progression that he would maybe expect to be making. Firstly, I would suggest to eat more calories each week, as he should aim to be in a calorie surplus if he's aiming to gain weight. This, for around someone of his sort of stature, his size, his age, would be about 2,700 calories to be in a surplus. Of course, this is obviously a significant amount higher than what he's eating right now, so it's very unrealistic to expect that amount straight away. So instead, I've suggested that he should aim to eat 200 more calories every day each week up until he gets to 3,000. So next week, for example, he'd be eating 1,700, obviously changing from 1,500. Then the week after, 1,900, and so on. This way, it's less likely that he'll become demotivated by it, as it's a much more realistic sort of goal, much more realistic target than the steep jump that would have been jumping from 1,500 to straight to 3,000, 2,700 type numbers. that would have been very difficult. However, it's also important that these added calories are healthy, as he wants to add muscle and not fat. So he should aim to try and have high protein food like chicken, for example, as it promotes muscle growth, helping it repair bigger and stronger each time after it's torn in exercise, of course, and it's also used to maintain it. He should aim to consume about at least 85 grams of protein per day so that this can happen. In order to keep him motivated, I'll check up with him every half a week to ensure that he's keeping up with his dietary plan. So this should just motivate him a little bit more, because obviously he doesn't want to be going back to me as saying he's doing worse than what expected, he's not keeping up. So hopefully that can motivate him a little bit. In the long term, this should increase his BMI as well, as it should move up into a more healthy percentile away from the underweight category. So this is a way we can test it, sort of see it, make sure it's working. The aim would be for the BMI to increase by a minimum of 0.3 each month, which can then be, obviously, like I said, this can be tested by seconds/many checks on the BMI calculator to see and record what has changed. Another suggestion is I'd also recommend, as an addition to this, that each day he makes a smoothie. Obviously this will help, as this will not only add to his total calories, but also help him reach his 5 of the day, as he currently only has 2 fruits each day. Of course, he can adapt this smoothie in any healthy way he likes to make it more enjoyable for him, but I'd start him off with a smoothie consisting of 3/4 of plain yogurt, 2 bananas, 5 strawberries, 1 tablespoon of peanut butter, and a slight bit of milk. This contains both fruit and a high amount of protein from the peanut butter, so it's an ideal way to start weight gain. Obviously, easy way to get the protein in straight away, and drinking calories tends to be a bit easier for most people trying to gain weight. Finally, I would also suggest implementing meal prep, as this way not only can he prepare healthier meals such as like chicken and rice, for example, but it should also help Alfie fit in 3 substantial meals per day, so he can bring it to work and have it in the lunch break, whereas before the lunch break was something he wouldn't normally really have time to eat, as he couldn't really go back and make stuff or stuff like that. So this should help him have a more consistent sort of diet, eating each day, eating 3 times each day and eating healthier each day.